Okay, I hope this is working. I don't know how to check. Okay, so I have my script to the right of me just because I have really bad memory and it's easier for me and it makes me like kind of less anxious to be able to look at my script. Um, but yeah, so I guess I'll just start. So social work to me is about taking an approach to struggling individuals that psychologists or other health professionals wouldn't necessarily take. Social workers begin on the same level as the individual and communicate with understanding and empathy to alleviate any outside pressure that the person might be experiencing. They also use their own lived experience to connect with this person while remaining professional. It is a profession. A social worker to me also reflects being on the side of the struggling individual and advocating for them in times of needs when they might not necessarily be able to advocate for themselves. Um, and yeah, so obviously we've had uni for a few weeks and I've been attending lectures, and in the past 2 weeks I've learned why my identity as an individual connects with my identity as a social worker. Therefore, I came to understand the approach I wish to have as a social worker. Identifying my sense of self was my first step to come to recognize the type of social worker I wish to be. So I choose to identify myself through my gender as a woman. I think in society, it is so powerful to be a woman, especially because it gives a sense of community through womanhood, and I value that a lot. I also closely identify with core beliefs and values, my personal ones, like politically and socially, like they're very meaningful to me, and I align with them very straight up. However, my social worker identity strongly ties in with my lived experience and critical turning moments in my life. Usually, these experiences in the outside world will not be viewed as positive ones, and in my personal life, I wouldn't let it define me. But in my social worker identity, it allows me to understand and to be compassionate, and therefore, through my identity as a social worker, it is a strength to be able to grasp other experiences and to empathize. In my past few weeks looking at concepts of self, it is consolidated that I want to work in the domestic family/violence field or in crisis response. I also must acknowledge that a lot of my identity is shaped through the interaction I have had with the world while growing up. But what I've come to know is that what's challenged me the most is sharing my perspective in class. While I understand everyone in my class is here for similar reasons that I am, I think it also adds more internal pressure to be correct or say the right answer. Going through high school, a lot of my personal validation came from my academic achievements. And so coming into university, where I've become an accredited social worker, immediately felt like a huge step up. And therefore, the pressure to perform well, it kind of really jumped. In all honesty, it is hard to keep up with all full classes this semester, not because it is hard, but because there is a lot of content to be written. This falls into another challenge I found in this class specifically, is sorting out my notes, keeping up with the pace of the notes, and deciding what is relevant enough for me to write down and memorize, because otherwise I just kind of write down everything. And to my knowledge, the Latrobe Social Work Education Framework is a breakdown of the different approaches that being a social worker contains, while also demonstrating the different relationships the individual sectors can have. The different sectors also break down the different ways of thinking and doing, especially in the social work field, while also including a First Nations approach and the consideration of critical theory and green social work. The framework breaks into four sectors, focusing on different ideas, including knowledge for understanding, skills for doing, self-awareness and use, critical thinking, reasoning, and decision making. Knowledge for understanding is the information one holds regarding relevant theories and concepts, as well as the consideration of different perspectives. I'm so sorry, it's just started raining. Skills for doing involves being aware of the most respectful and culturally sensitive way to communicate and maintain professional relationships. Self-awareness and use is, in my opinion, pretty self-explanatory. It's about being aware of who we are and how we interact with the world and with other people. Lastly, critical thinking, reasoning, and decision making is being able to carefully consider assumptions and biases, as well as using ethics to make decisions. Okay, I also just want to quickly touch on the important role that self-awareness and identity plays in the social work field. While other people may not necessarily agree with me, I think that how we choose to identify reflects the social worker we will become and how we choose to approach any relevant issues. I think that our identity also reflects the field of social work we will connect or empathize the most with, but I think this is combined with individual lived experience as well. The reason that I think this is purely because of personal encounter and past experience in class. We discussed the reason we wanted to be a social worker, whether we are looking for secure employment, we wanted lots of money, or we wanted to help people, and so forth. I expressed I was there to help people, but in my mind, I switch it up. And when I reflect why I am doing this, it is because I don't want other people to feel the way that I have felt in the past. And thus, the reason I think that experiences and past encounters reflect the social worker we will become. But I do acknowledge that this will be different for other people.